Welcome, everyone, to a Monday edition of Bet. It's Tyler Fulghum and Doug Kezirian in the studio here in Las Vegas because, you know, we're greedy and we want more FaceTime. We shoehorned our way, Doug, into hosting another show here on Bet, getting ready for the national championship game tonight.
Got the purple thrones, not just chairs. These are legit thrones. Had to bust out the pink socks, the white Argyle socks. We're not messing around today. It must be a championship Monday.
Yeah, it's going to be a jam-packed show. Trevor Matich going to join us. Anita Marks will stop by as well. I mean, you know, she's going to have a plethora of plays. But let's get it started here. Douglas, on a Monday, on Bet, we play reaction or no action. I'm going to give you a bet, a bet you can make at the window. Reaction, I would go make it. No action, you're going to stand tight. Not going to take that bet. You don't think it's a winner. Let's start with Max Duggan, the QB for TCU. 12-1 to score the first touchdown in this game. Reaction or no action?
No action, but I would not blame anyone for having a reaction / wager on that. Obviously, this means, just for those new to the betting world, that means he has to run this in or catch a touchdown, not throw a touchdown. So for 12-1, that turns out to around 7%-ish, right. Neighborhood 7.5. I just think maybe on the goal line. Maybe it's third and goal and they actually do it, unlike the Big 12 championship game. But other than that, I don't think he's going to have room to run against this Georgia front that's going to maintain their lane integrity because he wants to extend plays for so much. I think they know that, and that speed. He's going to have to throw or they're going to have to run conventionally.
Well, you're not blaming me for having this reaction,
okay.
But, you know, it's the national championship game. 12-1, you're right. Mathematically, probably not my best odds. I would like it something closer to 15 or 20-1 with Duggan particularly. But he is a weapon near the goal line, and we want a little YOLO. We want a nice payday 12-1. So I wouldn't go putting, you know, massive amounts of units on this play here, but sprinkle a little on Duggan at 12-1. That's enough candy, enough fun to have.
I'm surprised it's 12-1 because I think whoever's betting 12-1 would also bet like 9-1. So why not just offer 9-1? So I'm actually surprised. I think, again, I can't blame anyone for that.
All right, let's move to our second wager here. Reaction or no action. And if you like TCU to cover, perhaps you like this bet as well. Plus 550 for Georgia to win by just 1 or 6 points. Something in between that margin. Reaction or no action?
Similar answer. No action for me, but it's close. It's close. I would consider taking that because I don't think anyone really knows what to expect with this matchup. We've seen this number stay around 13-ish, and I don't think anybody would be stunned if it's a one-score game. Certainly, TCU, having did what they did against Michigan, gives them sort of credibility in the bettor's eyes, who's ever itching to lay the points. And it's a Big 12 team. This isn't, you know, Hickory High coming out of nowhere. I mean, they are a Big 12 team. A few years ago, I thought they should have been in the playoff. The year that I think Ohio State went, or I may have been getting my years, but they were certainly been in the discussion a couple times here and there over the years. So this isn't as random as we thought. Duggan was a runner-up in the Heisman Trophy. I wouldn't pull the trigger just yet, but it's close for me.
We're at odds again. I'm reaction here, and again, plus 550 is enough in a one-off national title game. If I'm going to have a portfolio of wagers, I'm trying to find as many, you know, kind of big paydays. So it's similar to what we just said earlier. It wouldn't be, you know, a full unit play, even a half unit play. It's just a little sprinkle to have a little something because I know we're going to talk about this on Daily Wager and today and then, of course, here on this show and get into it. But I kind of like TCU. I know that's on the public side here, but I kind of like TCU. And if you like TCU to cover, this correlates as a potential outcome where you kind of middle it. TCU covers, but Georgia wins.
It's the public side, but there's been sharp money on the Horned Frogs as well.
All right, let's move to our final reaction or no action. This would correlate if you like the over here, Douglas. Reaction or no action. Over 7.5 total TDs. We need 8 or more touchdowns, minus 140.
I'm on the no action. I actually think it's going to be a lower scoring game than people realize. I understand that both games in the semifinals went crazy, but they went bonkers later on. I mean, at halftime, this was right on the total in the TCU game. That third quarter took on a life of its own. I just think people need to remember what needs to happen for these games to go over these big totals. To get 8 touchdowns, you know, 2 a quarter. I mean, all it takes is a drive to midfield and pin them back. And again, I think TCU is going to have a tough time moving the ball against this Georgia team that has the same physicality as the Wolverines, but much the same amount of speed as the offense does. So I think they're going to be the right opponent to slow down this TCU offense.
One of us could have like a really good day betting this. One of us could have a really bad day because yet again, I'm on the other side. Reaction. I like the over here. I know you want to forget what you last saw and maybe not be hypnotized by all the points we saw in both games in the college football semifinals. But I kind of think TCU has enough speed on offense to score a few touchdowns against this Georgia defense. If it was the Georgia defense of last year, I wouldn't really like this bet. But even though Georgia still had one of the best defenses in the country, to me, it's clearly a step below what they had last year when they were just outrageously elite. One of the historically great defenses.
And the analytics and metrics defend that claim as well.
All right, we will get to our picks and plays. We kind of alluded to what we like here with this game coming up a little bit later. But right now, we got to welcome in the big guy, our friend Trevor Matich, to help us break down what this game might look like tonight at SoFi. Trevor, thanks for joining us here on our Monday edition of Bet. I'd like to start with a number of key positions, and of course, quarterback is the most key. You got Stetson Bennett, who's a veteran. He's been there. He's 4 years older, I think, than Max Duggan. Duggan, of course, has had a great year. So when you look at the quarterback edge, do you think one team has an advantage over the other?
I think one does, and I think it's minor. Both of these quarterbacks can make plays through the air and on the ground. That's why they're both Heisman finalists. Both of them are physically courageous and tough under pressure. I think where the edge goes to Georgia is that Stetson Bennett has been here before. I mean, he went all the way through the playoffs last year, won the national championship last year. So this is ground that he has already covered. He understands how to prepare. He understands what to focus on, but maybe more importantly, he understands what not to worry about. He understands how big certain plays should be in terms of how he responds to them during the game, and how some plays that might seem big if you haven't been there before really aren't that big of a deal. And I think that experience gives Georgia a slight edge at quarterback.
All right, let's talk about how these two teams match up when the TCU defense is on the field and Stetson Bennett and the Georgia offense are on the field. That TCU Horned Frog defense had 2 pick sixes against Michigan that were obviously very critical. Is there something in your eyes, Trevor, that is a perceived weakness of the Georgia Bulldog offense that TCU could try to exploit in this matchup?
I think it's almost splitting hairs, but the wide receiver group for Georgia is not terribly dynamic. Really, it's the tight ends and running backs that do a lot of the damage through the air as receivers. Ladd McConkey, their best wide receiver, their most prolific wide receiver this year, is working on kind of a gimpy knee. I don't know that he'll be fully 100%, but they got A.D. Mitchell back, receiver at the end of this season, and he's the one that caught the game-winning touchdown against Ohio State on a phenomenal move in the end zone. And so that will really help them. So I think for TCU, they've got the Jim Thorpe Award winner as the top defensive back in all of college football in Travius Hodges-Tomlinson. He is, by most statistics, the most effective shutdown corner in all of college football. And if he can lock down one side of the field, then what TCU will be able to do is freeze out the rest of those wide receivers and focus most of their attention on Brock Bowers, Georgia's great tight end. That, I think, is what TCU would need to look at to see if they have an advantage, because otherwise I don't see them with an advantage. I think I see the best matchups that they've got other than that being a wash with Georgia at best.
All right, Trevor, let's go back to this TCU offense at the running back spot. Obviously, they'd love to have Kendra Miller healthy and able to go. Amari DiMercato, though, he played pretty well against Michigan when they had to rely on him as their bell cow back. Do they need both of these running backs healthy and able to contribute for this Horned Frog offense to have a chance against Georgia's dynamic defense?
It puts them way back if Miller is not able to go. And I don't expect him to be able to go, at least not fully, 100%. DiMercato is a fantastic change of pace back. He's been very effective, but he doesn't really have that many carries. I think he has like 107 carries on the season, something like that. And what TCU likes to do is split carries between Miller, DiMercato, the other running back, and quarterback Max Duggan. All of a sudden now, if Miller can't go or can't carry his normal load, DiMercato will have to not just pick up the slack in terms of production, but also in terms of taking the pounding. And the question there is, how effective might he be in the fourth quarter? Keep this in mind, too, that Michigan's a very physical team, the most physical team that TCU has played to date. So is Georgia. And will DiMercato, if he has to take the load of 2 running backs and not just be a change of pace, will he be able to carry that physical load? And I think that's the big question for TCU at that position.
All right, Trevor, it should be pretty fun, the matchup when TCU's on offense, their wide receivers, especially their star Quentin Johnson, against the great defensive backs and corners of the Georgia Bulldogs, especially Kaylee Ringo. So who do you think wins that matchup tonight and why?
Keely Ringo and Quentin Johnston will both be in the NFL next year.
Yeah.
So this is going to be a really fun matchup. And a lot's been said about the height and size of Johnston. He's 6'4", 215, great body control. But Ringo is the perfect corner to match up with him. He's 6'2", over 200 pounds. So this will be a physical, fair fight between these two. I think it's down the rest of that roster that Georgia might have an issue. I mean, they shut down TCU's passing attack in the regular season, but then LSU in the SEC championship game put 502 passing yards on them, and it wasn't just in garbage time. The starters were out there getting torched by TCU's wide receivers for a lot of those yards. And then Ohio State threw for almost 350 yards. And so I think TCU, not just Quentin Johnston, but guys like Tay Barber and Darius Davis, guys that are electric after the catch, especially when they catch slants over the middle. Those are the guys that Georgia really needs to worry the most about, because if it's a fair fight between Ringo and Johnston, then who is going to cover the next guy? Who's going to cover the guy after that? And who's going to cover the guy after that? Because they go 4 deep, TCU does, with wide receivers who will probably be in the NFL. And that, to me, is where the big challenge for Georgia's secondary is. And the truth of it is, they are 0 for 2 in the last 2 games they've played in terms of a passing grade.
Yeah, Johnston and Ringo not only going to be in the NFL next season, Trevor, but they might be first-round draft picks to whoever is lucky enough to earn their services going forward. Finally, we'll just wrap it up with this. It's been tremendous insight, of course, as always, breaking this game down from an X's and O's perspective. I feel like I've learned a lot here. How would you suggest, or how might you, Trevor, ultimately play this game? It's now 13.5. That's a pretty big number that TCU is catching. The total's at 62. What do you suggest when you go to the window?
It's a massive number. I can see this game very easily breaking either for TCU by a little bit or Georgia in a romp. And the thing is, both semifinal victories by these teams were flawed. For Georgia, they played defense with the most reckless disregard for basic assignments in their pass rush lanes that I've ever seen a Georgia defense play with. That's one of the reasons that Ohio State quarterback C.J. Stroud was able to bust out of the pocket and make critical plays, extending and then throwing, or just scrambling to get him in position to possibly kick the game-winning field goal, which they missed. Those mistakes by Georgia are easily correctable. When you look at TCU, they played one of their best games of the season, but Michigan was just abysmal. I mean, 2 pick sixes, credit TCU for making the plays, but they were horrifically bad throws by Michigan's quarterback. And then there were 3 goal line stands inside the 5 by TCU. Their defense did a great job, but it was helped by inexplicable play calling at times down there by Michigan's offensive brain trust. And so I think they can't count on Georgia giving them the same gifts. And keep this in mind, 2 pick sixes, 3 goal line stands with some crazy play calling, and TCU won that game by 6 points. Because of that, I think Georgia is the better play.
Trevor, Doug Kezirian here. I wonder if some of your handicapping and analysis on the game may be a little skewed because you and your 1984 BYU national championship team want to remain the gold standard for Cinderella underdog storylines in college football. Any of that? Are you like the Mercury Morris of college football here, rooting against anyone sort of taking your throne?
Not at all. The thing is, we were what's classified now as a mid-major back then. Right. And in the modern era, no mid-major has ever won the national championship. TCU's in a Power 5 conference. So it's not exactly the same thing, but you're right. TCU is Cinderella. They were picked to finish 7th in their own conference in the Big 12 by a lot of people. And by that standard, they would be one of the biggest Cinderellas and one of the biggest upsets, in my opinion, in the modern era to win a national championship if they are to pull this off.
Awesome stuff from Trevor Matich, our guy joining us here on Bet. Trevor, we appreciate you dropping by, sharing that great insight. Enjoy tonight's national title game.
Thanks, guys.
All right.
And they also beat Michigan in their version of the championship game, the Holiday Bowl.
So. 84.
Yeah. 200-1 long shots, TCU, at one point in the offseason.
Phenomenal stuff from Trevor. I mean, the breakdown and the analysis is deep. He obviously knows as much as anyone in the world about college football. He likes the Georgia side. It's our turn now, and we kind of hinted at what we're thinking as far as a game script when we were playing reaction or no action a little bit earlier. We're going to start with game, side, and total. We'll get to props in just a little bit, but Douglas, here we go. 13.5, total of 62.
I, like Trevor, would lay it.
Okay.
I wouldn't be shocked. I really wouldn't if the Horned Frogs won this game because they are a legitimate team from a Power 5, as Trevor was saying, and they've been in this conversation before. I just ultimately think that Georgia won't mess around and the opportunities won't be there like they were against Michigan for TCU. I think the Bulldogs pull away late. I just think it's going to be tough sledding for that TCU offense. I think Georgia covers here.
Perhaps I am, blinded by the comfort of these purple chairs, but I'm with the Horned Frogs here, baby. It's 13.5. You're right. I think there is, certainly a much better than non-0% chance they can win this game. TCU has defied expectation all season long. We tried to find spots where they would have a letdown throughout the Big 12, coming off big wins, going on the road. We thought Michigan would assert dominance with their physical ability. And Trevor's right. There were some gifts handed to TCU, but you also create your own luck. Those were good plays defensively that turned into those pick sixes. So I'm not predicting that Stetson Bennett is going to throw 2 pick sixes here, but I think there's something about this TCU team that just makes them a tough out, that makes them kind of compete for 4 quarters in tight one-score games and gives themselves a chance in every single game. So kind of like the over, but I'll go with a TCU plus 13.5. I hope we get an entertaining, fun game. All right, so how about we try and break this tie? You're on Georgia, along with Trevor. I'm on TCU. Anita Marks, welcome to the program. Getting ready for, I'm sure, what will be a fun watch party for the national title game. Are you taking or laying the points tonight?
Well, I don't have a Mad Max t-shirt because I don't sport college, but I am wearing purple, Tyler. So I am. Give me the Horned Frogs. Give me the points. Come on, guys. There is something special about this team, right? I mean, and we've been sitting here talking about just like the odds and what amazing it would be for them to win the national championship. And when you talk to teams who've won national championships, they always say the ball's got to bounce their way. There's got to be a little bit of luck. There's got to be a little bit of camaraderie, something. And Sonny Dykes has this team playing exceptional football. On top of that, let's talk X's and O's. I do believe they have the better quarterback, the more explosive offense. In fact, Duggan, I like him. Throws 15 yards or more. He's averaging 53% completion percentage. You guys were just talking about all the weapons that he's going to be working with. And how about this? An even further deeper dive. SoFi Stadium, they have a matrix turf. That's what they play on. Dykes has experience playing on that type of turf. Georgia, they play on Bermuda grass. Tyler, I know we're always talking about Bermuda grass when it comes to golf, but I think this is going to be a thing as well that benefits the Horned Frogs. So give me the Horned Frogs, give me the points.
As only Anita Marks can, breaking down the turf and how that will handicap in the national championship game. All right, we're going to talk player props, and we know Anita's probably got a plethora, so hang tight, Anita. Doug and I will go first, and then we'll see what you have on the cheesecake menu tonight. Douglas, player props in this matchup, what is one or a couple that stand out to you?
Yeah, I don't want to be negative Nancy the entire day, but it sounds like I'm headed down that path. I'm going to take Max Duggan's rushing yards under 30.5.
Okay.
I think the most important thing for everyone to remember in college football, sack yards go against a quarterback's rushing yards. And Duggan will have design runs, and he will get some yards. He just won't have huge runs. But I don't think he'll be able to escape the pocket. I mentioned earlier Georgia pass rushers, and Trevor was talking about it. Obviously, he knows offensive line play. He knows that it's just baffling some of what Georgia did, maintaining lane integrity and things like that on defense. I think that front will be fine, and I don't think Duggan's going to be able to buy time and find lanes to escape and get flushed out. I think he's going to see some sack as well. So, yeah, under 30.5.
Yeah, and you reiterated again, in college, different than the pros, when a quarterback takes a sack, that is yardage that is docked.
And the odds makers know that too, obviously,
that's
but
fair.
just for bettors, it's not like 4 runs and Duggan's going to get there.
I'm on the TCU side as well for a player prop, and their star wide receiver that we were discussing, Quentin Johnston, if you don't know, 6'4", 225 pounds, runs a 4.4, 4.3 40. He's a stud. I'm having him go over 84.5 receiving yards. It's come down a little bit, but we get a nice plus 120 price here for a guy who is certainly a first-round talent at wide receiver, maybe the first wide receiver off the board next spring in the NFL draft. He has had a catch of at least 30 yards. This illustrates his big play potential. Of at least 30 yards in 8 consecutive games. He's had a 50-plus yard reception in 5 of those 8 games. And we saw him have that 70-yard score against Michigan where he took a short pass and outran everyone down the sideline. So if TCU builds a lead and wins this game surprisingly, it's probably going to require Johnston to have a big day. If Georgia is beating the brakes off of them in the third and fourth quarter, Duggan's going to be throwing the football a lot, and he's going to be trying to force feed Johnston. So
Soft
I think
coverage
there's
potentially
exactly
too, yeah.
multiple paths to him getting over this, and I like that price at plus 120. All right, Anita Marks, come on back in here and share with us, please, if you have a plethora of player props.
Yeah, Dougie, I'm on the opposite side with Duggan and Mad Max. I'm going over rushing yards for him, and I've got anytime touchdowns. This dude, he delivers on the big stage. He has 8 rushing touchdowns this season, and I think the way that Dykes spreads the offense out, it is going to create rushing lanes for him. And with Miller's knee injury, I think he's going to have to run the football. I like where you're going with Johnston as well. Tyler, I've got over receptions and over receiving yards. I think he'll be the #1 wide receiver drafted in this year's NFL draft. He averages 116 yards per game. And Georgia's secondary allowed 20 yards per catch to Harrison Jr. in the Peach Bowl. Jared Wiley, give me over receptions. Why? 44% target share, and Georgia plays a cover 3. So anything short, intermittent passing, he's going to get targeted. And last but not least, Bennett interception. He's got 7 on the season. 2 against Mississippi State. Why? They play a 3-3-5 defense. And guess what? That is the defense that the Horned Frogs play as well. I think Bennett is going to be a little confused tonight, and I think for sure he tosses a pick.
All right, there is the menu from the prop extraordinaire that is Anita Marks. So best of luck to you tonight, Anita. Love that you're bringing all that to the game. Hang tight here. We're going to bring you back in a little bit, but Douglas, it's time for us to play Take Your Pick with this national title game. So what we're going to do here is compare or stack up a couple of bets you can make at the window for this game, and you take your pick which one you prefer as it pertains to the matchup. So let's start here first and foremost. The 2 quarterbacks. Who goes over his passing yardage prop? Max Duggan, 240.5, and that's been climbing. Stetson Bennett, 280.5.
So if I had to take one of the overs, I would do Duggan because I think you mentioned it earlier in one of the props saying, hey, this game could go a different few scripts. If it does get away from TCU, he's going to find a way and have to do get his yardage and maybe against soft defenses. I don't think he's going to be completely shut down. I just think it's going to be tough to go full in, find the end zone multiple times, but I think they're going to have to pass a lot to just soften up that Bulldogs defense.
I'm right there with you. Finally, we come together and have some agreement here. I love the lower threshold. It's 40 yards lower than Stetson Bennett. And again, game script as a big underdog. I mean, he likely, if this game goes the way Vegas is expecting, is going to have to be throwing a lot in the second half. And if I like Quentin Johnston to have a big day and create some big explosive plays, then Duggan is tied to that, obviously, as the man throwing him the football. So, and then, of course, the other path, if somehow TCU, stuns the world here a little bit and wins this game, Duggan's probably going to have a big game in that regard as well. So we're both in agreement there on Duggan taking your pick going over that yardage prop. All right, Georgia's first drive. Here's a fun one, Doug. Ends in a punt, plus 140, or take your pick, ends with a TD, plus 150.
All right, so obviously there are more than these options. But if you had to pick one of these two, I would take a punt.
Okay.
I think Kirby Smart was really disappointed. Remember, at the end of the game, he put his arm around Bennett. Like, what'd you tell him? He's like, well, I told him, there was about 30 minutes where he wasn't himself. He was playing a game. So I think the reinforcing is don't do too much. Just do what you need to do and just live to fight another down. Don't force the ball like he did in the first half. I mean, they were down a couple touchdowns, right? He dug themselves a hole. So I think he's going to err on the side of caution. So maybe there might be a throwaway in there on 3rd and 4 or something along those lines. So I'll take punt at plus money.
This is a coin flip for me, so I'll just take the extra 10 cents at plus 150. I think we are going to see a higher scoring game. I tend to lean towards the over here. I think we're going to see some explosive. I don't know if it's going to be, 58, 50 like we saw basically in the CFP semis, but I think obviously there's a lot of talent with Stetson Bennett on that Georgia offense, and I think we're going to see some scores. So kind of correlating with what I've been building here for a portfolio and the fact that it's, plus 150 versus plus 140. That's kind of a tiebreaker for me. It ends in an offensive TD that first drive. All right, finally, longest touchdown of the game. 49.5 yards is the market at Caesars. Over, minus 130. Under, even money. Take your pick.
I would take the over.
Okay, there we go.
You got a punt, you got a kick return, long play from scrimmage, obviously, a defensive score. Can be a pick six or scoop and score. I think there's a lot of speed on the field today. Now, granted, there's speed on the team that's trying to tackle them, who's ever got the ball, but I think there could be a couple plays. And then obviously Georgia has the track star where they threw the bomb to get back into the game when they're down 15 in the fourth quarter to get the sort of spark that comeback. I think there's going to be a big play. 50's not a lot to ask.
No, I'm with you. I think, again, if just building that game script that I am predicting and want to see with all that speed on both sides, there are big play threats. And I feel like we've seen that a lot in national title games recently where there is an explosive play on the offense. And you're right, it doesn't have to come just from the offense. You could see a punt return, you could see a scoop and score, that type of thing. But minus 130, I don't think is too juicy for me. I would go ahead and lay that. We see at least a 50-yard score tonight at SoFi Stadium, whether it comes from
well
TCU
done
or
with
Georgia.
the technology, by the way.
Well, you know that's why
It's Championship Monday for a reason.
right. Playing a lot of PlayStation.
Yeah,
Xbox
is that what it is?
has me good on the iPad. All right, Anita Marks is going to come back as we get ready to shut it down here on Bet. Before I let you go, and a new kind of like, I guess, acronym, Billy G. Billy G, that's what we call it now around here. B-I-L-Y-G.
Oh, okay,
Before I
okay.
let you go, the Billy G.
I like it.
Anita, your favorite play in the National Football League. We got Super Wildcard Weekend, Saturday through Monday. Now that we know who's matched up with who, what is a play that you have to share with our viewers before you let them go?
Right, so I know I'm wearing purple, but I'm actually drinking the blue Kool-Aid. And I'm going with Big Blue, baby. Give me the Giants +3. I'm also going to play them on the money line. Listen, they should have beat them the first time around, right? The Giants, they suffered a blocked punt, and then they lost to a 61-yard field goal by the Minnesota Vikings. But all in all, they put up more total yards than the Vikings in that game. Also, Daniel Jones passed for over 300 yards. The Minnesota Vikings defense is no bueno, and their pass defense is one of the worst in the NFL. On top of that, I do believe this Giants defense that is rested. Keep in mind, this past week they used as a bye week. They're going to get after Kirk Cousins, who only has a 53% completion percentage when he is pressured, and that's exactly what the Giants do because they're so blitz happy. They got to him 4 times that last game. I think Thibodeau is going to be doing snow angels in the dome. So give me the Giants and the points. I'm also going to play them on the money line.
Yeah, G-Men were a tremendous cover team all season long, beating market expectation throughout the year and beating our expectation, making it to the postseason. That's one rematch we're going to see on Super Wildcard Weekend. In fact, every game is a rematch of something we have seen this weekend. Anita, best of luck to you. Enjoy tonight's national title game. Oh, we always love chatting with you, Anita Marks. All right, Douglas, your favorite play, one you have to share before we let the viewing public go.
Well, ironically, you mentioned it's a rematch. These two teams played week 1, and it was my favorite bet that I talked about all summer. We're going to come right back to it. 1 week from tonight, Cowboys, Bucks, under. Now, it was a much higher number in the season opener for them, but I have been not impressed with this Bucks offense. I know they're getting a little healthier, but I'm not going to be swayed by how Brady looked in the first half yesterday against the Falcons. These two defenses are top 8 in defensive efficiency. The Bucks offense is bottom 3rd in the league, and we know about Dak's struggles recently, interception in all these games. I think just the playoff, there's a tightness there, measured possessions. There's not going to be any craziness in terms of fake punts and all that stuff. Right. 45 neighborhood feels like it's a big number. It's going to be close. Yeah. All these are going to be a sweat, but I like the under.
Yeah, again, rematch from week 1. That game went well under. Of course, Dak got hurt there.
And it's same issues, though. The O-line issues are there.
Yeah, no, 100%. 100%. I'm going to go to an NFC West wildcard matchup. San Francisco 49ers laying a big number against the Seattle Seahawks. I'm going to stay away from laying a big number on Super Wildcard Weekend, but I do think San Francisco's offense will carry over into the postseason the dominant momentum they built with Brock Purdy under center in the regular season. Purdy started 6 games, and they won all 6. The team averaged 33.5 points per game in those 6. They went over 33 in 5 of 6. Now, the one time they didn't was against Seattle, but that game was in Seattle. I think Purdy now having Eli Mitchell and McCaffrey, Deebo, Kittle, Ayuk, Ballin, healthy O-line. I think, well, as long as Kyle Shanahan does Kyle Shanahan things against what is a pretty nondescript defense, the Seattle defense does not scare me at all. They're terrible against the run. That's not good against Kyle Shanahan and the San Francisco 49ers. So I think they score at least 27 points, team total over 26.5. I'm afraid of laying that number, but I think the offense does their part in that matchup.
I can see that for sure.
All right, those are favorite Super Wildcard Weekend plays. Before we let you go, it is now time to shut it down here on Bet. Great stuff from Trevor Matich, Anita, Doug. Always have fun hosting alongside you here. Enjoy the national title game tonight. TCU and Georgia. The champ will be crowned.